Common interviewing questions demystified. Sometimes recruiters are like investigators, and they will try multiple ways in order to find out more about you, the real you. They will try to ask something that would catch you unprepared because they do not want to hear what you have rehearsed at home. Like the weird questions that Google used to ask at the interviews. How many golf balls can fit in a school bus? And by the way, Google doesn't ask those brain teaser interview questions anymore because they find out those questions are not good predictors of great talents. But still, a lot of times, interview questions can be difficult to answer. Why are these questions difficult to be answered? If we dig deeper, there are actually several types of difficulties. 1. You need to admit some embarrassing or unusual facts, like poor academic results, a change of major, and to explain the rationale behind the decision. 2. Tricky questions that you need to handle tactfully so not to fall into a trap. You simply cannot speak like you are complaining to your friend over a drink. 3. It is intellectually difficult or out of your knowledge base. 4. You are not comfortable in selling yourself when they need you to persuade them why should they hire you. So next, I'll walk through some of the questions with you using the below 3-step decoding method. Step 1. Why the interviewer asked about this. 2. The key focus of the question in referring to the 4 cabinets of competencies. And step 3. Your answering strategy. Here's a quick recap of the 4 cabinets of competencies we mentioned in the episode of Building Your Career Story Bank. So we are going to design if the interviewing questions are task questions, whether if they are about hard skills, thought questions if they are about ideas, concepts, logic, or creativity, people questions if they are about relationships, and self-management questions if they are about your own state of resourcefulness. Difficulty 1. Addressing embarrassing or unusual facts. Tell me about your weaknesses. Some of the variations of the same question could be: if I called your current or previous manager, what would he or she say that you need to work on? Or if you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be? Why is it asked? Because the interviewer wants to find out if you are self-aware and if you are a learner in action who make improvement plans. So the key focus here is not on your weaknesses, but more on your self-management skills. That is, whether you are able to evaluate what you are good at and bad at, and manage them accordingly. Your answering strategies. First, agree that no one is perfect. I recommend you to pick something real from the past and something that's not a must-have and relatively minor to the success of the job, and then explain the steps you've taken to overcome it and what have been changed afterwards. Examples of weaknesses that are normally acceptable for fresh graduates could be public speaking, which is a skill that could definitely be improved by more practices, or that you're impatient and want things to happen fast, which shows your ambitions as well as what annoys you, and you can take the chance to tell the interviewers what you have learned, to adjust yourself so you won't get crushed easily, and that it won't affect your relationships. Or maybe you find yourself lacking the ability to ask for help because you want to do everything yourself. at your early career, when you have no one to delegate to, is pretty normal. Makes sense? And now, never say you are a perfectionist, even if you think you are. You might think you are clever in turning a strength into a weakness, but it's not. Because psychologically speaking, the moment when you say you are a perfectionist, your interviewer would go into the fault-finding mode to pick at you and see how high a quality standard you are upholding for yourself. And then start to judge you from how you dress, what you say, and whether there are spelling mistakes in your resume. So please, don't do that. Similarly, you could be asked questions like, how do you respond to failure? Or tell me about your biggest challenge by far and how have you handled it? Describe a stressful situation that demonstrates your coping skills. The interviewer wants to see if you can turn a negative experience into a learning experience. This is a thought-based question, and therefore your focus should be on your reflections and what lessons you have learned. Your answering strategies are: pick a relevant failure experience from your career story bank. Take responsibility for it, not blaming others. And how you see the failure as feedbacks to help you adjust your future actions. And explain what lessons you have learned and what improvements you have made. For career changes, it's very possible that you have been taking your careers as experiments, and it doesn't look good on a chronological resume. Many recruiters will frown over the so-called job hoppers and will be very careful before they hire one. If you're being asked, why have you had so many job changes? They are actually trying to understand your rationale and attitude towards your career development. Are you someone who cannot handle pressure and obstacles? Who gets bored and impatient quickly? Or simply pivoting your way to finally do what you love and strong at? Your key focus then would be to share your current attitude or goals towards your career development. To answer this, first, state what you want to achieve in your career in a big picture view. For example, my career mission is to help discover individuals' potentials and bring out the best in everyone I work with. This is not limited by where or in what way I'm offering my values to the world. Second, articulate concisely for the reasons you changed jobs without blaming others. So you have to reflect for reasons that make sense to other people. Then highlight your transferable skills and what you have contributed and learned for each experience. If you have been in sales or project-based positions, it will be easier to quantify your achievements. And finally, you would like to stress that you are now looking for an employer to finally commit and dedicate your efforts in long term and why you choose this company for that. Type 2 of difficulty. Tricky questions that you need to handle tactfully. Tell me about any difficulties you had getting along with others, which has assumed you must have some kind of difficulties in the first place. The question variations could be: have you ever dealt with an interpersonal conflict in a team? Have you worked with someone you didn't like? If so, how do you handle it? Or if you had conflicts with your teammates in a group project, how will you handle it? The trap here is in the process of answering, you might turn the questions into judging and blaming others, showing the they versus you attitude. Another possibility is that you would victimize yourself. neither of these attitudes show the best side of you to the interviewers. Why it is asked? It's all about teamwork in the workplace. They want to see how you react in conflicting relationships, which is sometimes unavoidable. So it's a people-based question apparently, and therefore your key focus should be on your efforts to understand and seek cooperation with others. Your answering strategies. Well, these are not just suggestions for interviews, but real and practical conflict resolution strategies that you can use in your relationship. Now pick a story from your career story bank and reflect on the below questions. Have you ever put yourself in their shoes to really understand their hopes and fears? Did you seek to find differences between you, or seek to find common ground? Sometimes it takes two. Did you reflect on and adjust how you communicate with them? How did you build rapport? Now let me share with you a personal story that happened in my early career. Whenever my colleagues came to me and requested for a helping hand, I would have difficulties in saying no. So in the end, I am overworked, but my projects with high priorities were always lagging behind. So once I've decided to brave up and tell them that I have to focus on my top priorities and would have no spare time in 2 weeks for helping them, I asked if they can wait. Their response? Alright, then I'll go find someone else. I've never thought it could be that easy. So therefore, sometimes all the drama only happens in your head. Now, I might have another Udemy course on how to survive and get ahead in the workplace as career starters later on. Let me know if you're interested in the topic. Now back to here. What are the common goals that you both need to work together in order to achieve? Some of you may have a challenge in recalling a case of working with difficult people, and if that is you, ask yourself if you have stayed firm to your principles without too much compromising. Maybe that's the reason why you have never met a so-called difficult person, because you are settling for too much. Now, it's not necessary that your story is a happy ending, that you turn enemies into best friends. Just walk through this list with your story and share how you think with your interviewers, and they will be impressed by how thorough and considerate you are as a team member. Next question. How do you see yourself in 5 years? Or they can ask you, what are your career objectives? I was even asked to draw a picture of my future in 5 years in an assessment center. Interviewers asked this to see how committed you are in this industry. The trap here is that your real plan has nothing to do with staying at this company for 5 years. Maybe you want to continue your education, or it's just a stepping stone to a completely different industry. And of course, you do not want them to know. And I don't want you to lie, so instead, just focus on your growth after 5 years as your achievements. For example, you want to get promoted to a team lead position in 5 years. Then you say, in 5 years' time, you target to have gained enough technical experience as well as people skills in order to be able to lead a small team for a certain project. Never mention the job title directly that you want to get. Instead, mention how much you have grown professionally and in what capacity you can contribute to the company by then. And explain further on how the organization can help you reach these personal goals, like rotating you to different departments to learn and grow, which really shows your commitment and ambition. Difficulty 3. Answering questions that are out of your knowledge base. A lot of times, these are situational or case questions like, imagine there is a difficult customer standing here complaining about your services. How would you handle? Or to give you several urgent tasks and ask you to prioritize and handle accordingly. Why do they ask you this kind of question? Apparently, they want to test your problem-solving ability. And your answering strategy is to isolate the problem first, then propose the solutions later. Now, this is very important because for normal people, they usually jump right in and offer solutions one after another. Probably, these are not the solutions that really works because they have been wasting their time in solving the wrong problem. Smart people do it differently, and that is what consultants do. Companies hire consultants to find out precisely the root cause of the company's problems, and then the solutions are usually quite straightforward. Therefore, consulting firms use a lot of case interviews in recruitment. So, when answering a situational question, use 75% of your time in isolating and defining what is the actual problem, and use the remaining 25% in solving the problem. So what to do if, when the interviewer flows you a question, your mind just goes blank? Scary, right? But it happens sometimes. In this case, you might politely ask the interviewer to repeat the question. Or you can say directly to the interviewer that, I've never thought about this. Please give me a few seconds to organize my thoughts. They will wait for you for sure. Next, you can try to rephrase the question and define the keywords while you are trying to put things together in your head. With the keywords, determine whether it's a task, thought, people, or self-management question. Just break it down and see if anything in your story bank can be laterally relevant. Remember, you are not expected to give a solution to every problem. The interviewer just wants to see how you analyze it and what your thought process is. Next, how to answer if they ask you, why do you want to work for us? Or say, you want to go into the big four firms. They ask you, why us, but not the other firms? When everybody knows you have applied to all of them, of course. Interviewers want to see that you've taken the time to research the company and understand the industry. They also want to know that you actually want this job and not just any job. So your key focus is to show your understanding in a company and you have a can-do attitude to make a contribution to the team. To answer this type of questions, do not just say, because you guys are the best in the industry. This is just too shallow. So instead, offer them with precise reasons of what sets them apart from their competitions and how their mission and company culture align with that of yours. Most companies have strong brand values and corporate culture that you can find clues in their websites, employee interviews, as well as Glassdoor. For example, if the company is well known for the standards of corporate responsibilities, and this is important to you too, mention it. If they are working on projects which interest you, mention it. After asking why us, the next question would be, why you? To answer this, identify what are important to them, which are also important to you under these three layers. Your passion and values, your capabilities, and your career planning. which means you're motivated to do it, you have the ability to do it, and you see the company as a platform to achieve great things in the long term. Remember to quote 1 to 2 stories of your core strengths to strengthen the message. Show the confidence to your interviewers that you deserve the position because of what you have. And end the message by linking how you can contribute to the company's vision and future development. Remember that interviewing is just a conversation. It's really about whether you can keep it flow smoothly and the communication engaging. Now, instead of giving you a quote, I would like to end this episode by giving you a challenge. I want you to practice what you learned by forming a roleplay mock interview group. Now go out and form a small group of 4. Take turns to roleplay the interview scenario. One person will be the interviewer and the rest will be the interviewees. Pick any difficult interview question to ask and see how different their answers could be. Observe and learn from each other, and don't forget to give constructive feedbacks to each other as if you are the interviewers. Have fun doing this challenge, and I would love to hear from your feedbacks afterward.